then these 10 major persecutions over 300 years, I believe, were carried out possibly by the 10 kings and a one unified Christian persecution, the Great Tribulation that we read about in the Bible.
Oh my word! Oh my word! This is like getting beyond ridiculous. Sorry, I'm laughing so much.
This is where it all starts getting messed up, though. Like, are these guys? Say they're not 300 years apart, but are they after 70 AD?
Hey everybody, third time lucky. Hey Michael, good to see you for the third time now today. Guys, this is the third attempt in trying to record this. It just doesn't want to work. But this is part,
isn't it? You know.
But this is part 2. It's part 2 of the addressing Jack. What's his name? Jason Jack on the 4 Horsemen of the Apocalypse. And we've been saying this the whole time. We don't want to repeat ourselves, but preterism is very closely linked to Satan's short season. The fact that Satan's short seasonists don't want to take the how can I say the label of preterism is actually very sad, because that's exactly what they are.
It's partial preterism because they think some things have been fulfilled. I don't know how you can wangle your way out of how it's defined, you know, but that's up to them. I'm not.
Yeah, I mean, if you believe that Revelations 20 has happened, that's literally at the end times in Revelation. So they are preterists. They're just literally waiting now for the white throne judgment. That's all they're waiting for.
What you should ask yourself is, why does it bother them so much? You know, they're happy to throw out words at us, stupid futurist, blah, 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 you know. They're happy to throw that around, but when you call them a preterist, don't like it. It's like garlic to a vampire.
It's so true. So also one thing we brought up also the last time on part 1 is Gunnar Heinsohn that they like to use. Why are they always appealing to atheists for these things? Were they using them as the authorities, and they're not using the Bible?
Because a Christian scholar won't agree with what they're pushing. So
exactly.
Bible, there's none of this belief they hold isn't Bible.
At all.
None of early church believe this nonsense. None of modern church believes this nonsense. This is literally a silly little cult on YouTube where, like, let's be real, right? There were teachings from disciples, and then there were teachings in early church, and then we move 1,000, 2,000 years down the line, and all of a sudden we've got a few idiots on YouTube know it all, you know, changing scripture.
All church fathers are wrong. All the apostles are wrong. Everybody in Christianity through history is just wrong.
And all you can get is, well, Satan's being released to deceive us, so we can't know none of it. Do you know what I mean? So it's just a baseless claim. That's all it is.
But the fundamentals of that is really messed up, because if you're a Christian, you understand if Jesus has returned, he's had his millennial reign. He doesn't stop reigning. It says he reigns for eternity. The only thing is that it specifies the Bible, after 1,000 years, he must release Satan. That's it. It doesn't say stops reigning. It doesn't say he just disappears. And then they get into these idiotic arguments based on this nonsense theology, claiming, well, that's not the real Jerusalem. That's not actually where it is. And then you get people telling us, no, Jesus is hiding in the North Pole, or Jerusalem is actually Las Vegas, things like that. It's like
pure insanity. But do you know something that's occurred to me with what's happened over the last 6 months regarding my art is you don't know what's around the corner, and it's no joke. Right? You need to be sure that you are following correct Jesus, the one who spoke about in Bible, the one who disciples died for. You know, these people aren't pushing that Jesus in Bible. They're not. And it's no joke. It's all right. All this bantering and back and forth, arguing, laughing emojis, face slap emojis. You are this, you are that. You know what I mean? But it's not a joke. If you haven't got right Jesus, then it's game over. And you don't know whether you're going to be here tomorrow.
The problem with all these, the problem with all these heresies, I mean, this is why we're talking a lot to get with Unitarianism of late and things as well. They don't follow the Jesus of the Bible. They don't follow the true Jesus. So when they don't follow the true Jesus, they are denying him. And the Bible is very clear. If you deny me before men, I will deny you before the Father. So it's a very dangerous game to play with these heresies. We don't want to call them heretics. We don't want to fight with them or anything, but we want to present them with the truth. And the simple matter of the truth is, they are not considered Christians if it's according to the Bible. And they are bound for the exact place of separation where everybody else who denies Jesus. So us as Christians, we have to be very straightforward and say, you guys are not following what the Bible teaches. Right. And it's out of love that we do this.
I mean, Sean brought up a good point when he came on yours the other day, you know, when he says the Jesus that the disciples spoke of and taught about was one who's coming.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And he hadn't come yet. He's still coming. Like it says in Revelation that the one who was and who is and is coming. You know, so part of gospel is his coming, not his came. So in my eyes, they're not even in following gospel. And they've like sort of bypassed an understanding of God and understanding Jesus. They've bypassed all that. I mean, a lot of the ones that you talk to, they don't even understand nature of God.
No.
You know what I mean? How can we be talking about his come when you don't even know who he is?
Yeah, but that's also the thing. Look at the fruits that are yielded from the Satan short seasonists. Look how triggered and angry they get, and all they do is just call everybody names and say you're calling Jesus a liar and you're not a Christian and blah, 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 just because we don't follow their cult. Their fruits are rotten. That's the unfortunate thing. And I heard an awesome thing this morning. A guy took an orange and he was squeezing the orange. And he says this is how it actually works based on biblical character. You can squeeze that orange, and what comes out of that orange if you open up that orange, if it gets squeezed? Orange juice. You're not going to expect banana juice or apple juice because it's an orange. Now, what happens with a person's character if they're getting squeezed? And what comes out is showing their fruits inside. And if you have the Holy Spirit and you are biblically based, you're not going to be doing what these preterists are doing. You're not going to be doing what these Satan short seasonists are doing with their juice coming out, because they have a lot of hate. They have a lot of anger. They have a lot of resentment and things, bitterness that come out of them. And that's when they got to sit back and think, hang on, do I actually follow the right Jesus? Do I follow what's being taught in the Bible? I think that's very interesting.
Like for me, right, I could just totally walk away from even dealing with him and just think, leave him to it, you know. I know what Bible says. I know Jesus hasn't returned. You know, I'll just look after my own salvation. I could literally do that, but that's not what Bible says, you know. Because
exactly.
we should be trying to save these people, you know.
I agree. Yeah.
But it is difficult.
Mm-hmm. But anyway, I think we're going to have to go on with this and see what he says, because we only covered like 8 to 9 minutes of his last video, so there's a lot more to go.
With scripture. But here is another interesting paper that Gunnar Heinzen did, again, looking at these findings based on stratigraphy. This was released in June of 2019, and I didn't show this paper in the last video when we talked about the early church fathers, but he shows very convincing evidence here of this same idea that these early Caesars of antiquity were contemporaneous with the later Caesars of antiquity. It says here, Augustus and Diocletian, contemporaries are 300 years apart. And
You see, this is the issue I have here, though. He's now trying to argue and say, well, you see, there is some timeline differences, so therefore you can't trust history. But he's literally trusting history based on this atheist who's making these claims.
What they want to do is they want to either take people who are after 70 AD and bring them before 70 AD, or they want to compact it all into a very short period of time. But you can't do that because there's evidence to show this timeline, you know.
Yeah, exactly. Yes, that's true. But like I said, I find it very ironic that these same guys want to argue how unreliable history is, but then they go to history to make the argument. But then they only cherry pick the history they want. And the sad thing is, all this is hinging on because they believe in a big lie like mud floods, Tartaria. That's what actually hinges off Satan's sword season.
Definitely fuels it.
Mm-hmm.
Shows very similar findings between the early imperial antiquity and the Tetrarch of Diocletian of the 4th century. And
stop.
I mean,
but like what actual evidence am I looking at here? Like, I'm just looking at a piece of paper on the screen and a guy making claims about it. Where's the evidence of this fudging at timeline?
I mean, you can take anybody. How many people through history have just made claims? If you don't present the evidence to back it up, at the end of the day, it's still just claims. So, yeah, I mean, what we're seeing on screen is just someone making a claim about history.
When I showed you all coins that have been found in England from each monarchs, you know, that proves each monarch, and that's a timeline. And you can say history is fake and all that, but what were they minting all them coins in 1 year? Let's just and we'll mint all these coins for different kings and we'll fake a timeline. You know, it's absurd.
Yeah,
absolutely absurd.
Too many coincidences for it to be a coincidence. And so, you know, we won't go through all this, but I will let you just look through all of these. But for instance, it shows that, well, just looking at the first one, the invasion of England had the same legions from the same place. 300 years later, the same invasion with the same legions, with the same name.
According to who?
I really don't want to go down English history. I really
no.
Don't.
English history debunks Satan's short season beyond compare, guys. I mean, Michael sends me so much things on the history of England sometimes, and it's like, yeah, this happened, so therefore it wasn't Satan's short season. Yeah, this happened, therefore it couldn't have been in millennial reign. So I find it really odd. But this is the thing we're saying. Because he has a bias towards this cult belief, he'll ignore everything else that doesn't suit his narrative. So he'll cherry pick. And this is exactly what the Muslims, for instance, do. When they attack Christians on the Bible, they will read one verse out of a whole chapter and then ignore the rest. And if you bring up even a verse in that same chapter, say, no, that's been corrupted. They only pick up that one little sentence that works for them. And this is exactly what Satan's short season is doing.
So here's the thing, right? History's all been faked and there's this fudged timeline. But here, this is my opposing timeline where I'm presenting you believe that one. But aren't we in time that Satan's been released and deceiving everyone? So are you a deceiver, Jason Jack? Are you working for Satan? You know, what we're supposed to do with that? What we're supposed to do is go to the Bible, because that's the thing that Satan's not deceiving us with. Forget all this history. We don't need it. Bible's quite clear if you bother to read it.
But the histories anyway debunk them, even if they wanted to do that. There's just... It actually boggles my mind
It's just
because
a
these are the same
fanciful-
people.
It's just a fanciful rabbit hole that's literally taking people away from God. That's basically
Exactly.
what it
Yeah,
is.
that's the thing. And the thing about this as well, they are claiming they're just following scripture. No, they're not. If you just followed scripture, you would not even second think about Satan's short season right now. Not even an inkling of it, because it doesn't fit at all. I mean, how many times do we have to bring up the scriptures that show, based on Zechariah, Mount of Olives has to be split? It hasn't split. Okay? Based on Matthew 24, where Jesus is very clear that the Antichrist has to come. That hasn't happened. The third temple has to be built first. It hasn't happened. Yet they want to tell us, oh no, scripture's very clear. Yeah, it's very clear. It's not preterism.
Well, last night someone said to you that, or night before, someone said to you in comments that Mount of Olives is split in two. No, it's not. But there's literally videos going round saying that it's splitting, which I don't believe either, because if it is splitting, then Jesus must be returned as well. You know what I mean? So it's just not split at all.
Yeah, that's the thing. It has to split. You can go now to Jerusalem if you want to, and you can see the Mount of Olives is still standing. Quite interesting.
And like,
You see,
just quickly.
Yeah.
Also, it's not just a little tiny split. Like, it's split into like a valley.
Huge.
You know what I mean? It's not something that you can argue against. If it's happened, we'd better go. Like, there'd be video of it. You know what I mean?
It'll be everywhere. I mean, do you really think the Jews right now would be sitting the way they are if this prophecy was being fulfilled?
Everything that's going off over there debunks Satan's short season.
Everything. I mean, this whole thing with Iran at the moment, this whole thing.
There'd be no Judaistic Jews.
Nope.
You know what I mean?
No, there's a lot of reaching when it comes to this belief system and ignoring.
I mean, what is it? Romans 11 says when Jesus returns, all Jews will be saved. So if Jesus
And
returns,
it doesn't say
all
some.
Jews were saved.
Yeah, it doesn't say some. It says all will be saved.
So you've got to now think that everybody in Israel's a fake. They're not. There's no single
that's
Jew at all.
And that's the problem where the anti-Semitism comes with some of these Christians, where they hate the Jews because they are this nonsense of they're part of the synagogue of Satan. Everybody that supports the synagogue of Satan. It shows you they don't even know what the synagogue of Satan is, first of all. And it second shows you they are so blinded by their hate towards God's chosen people. Yes, the Jews are God's chosen people. And they will be saved.
I'm doing some. I mean, I've been poorly analysed, so I'm being at my best. But I've got a bit of research in pipeline along the lines of synagogue of Satan. That very thing debunks Satan's short season.
Yes, because the synagogue of Satan has already happened, and today people can still be part of the so-called synagogue of Satan because it's literally everyone who is an antichrist is part of the synagogue of Satan. Anyone who denies Jesus is part of the synagogue of Satan.
You know what's funny about it is I were only looking into it because they're all anti-Semitism. It was not to do with Satan's short season when I started looking into it. But what were revealed to me were, it's actually also contains a refutation of Satan's short season.
But I mean, if you read
what you find when you look into things.
Yeah, if you read, for instance, about the synagogue of Satan written in Revelation, okay? It's written in Revelation 3. And it is specific about the churches in Philadelphia, Smyrna, and things, okay? Which was at the time of when John was writing Revelation. And when was that? 100 AD.
90 AD, I think.
Between 90 to 100 AD about. When they claiming the millennial reign was happening. It's really sad because that was the synagogue of Satan mentioned. It was to those specific churches, to the people there claiming they were Jews, which are not, claiming the people that are Christians and are not Christians, all these people following traditions. And that has already passed. We passed Revelation 3, people, just in case anybody hasn't realized. Especially if you are a Satan short seasonist, you believe Revelations 20 has happened.
I'll tell
So
you
there
exactly,
is no more synagogue of Satan according to them.
I'll tell you exactly where we are biblically. We're at the falling away. You know,
Exactly.
Jesus said there must be a falling away first, and
Matthew
then
24.
the son of perdition will be revealed. And that's literally where we are now. We're seeing falling away. This Satan short season is part of it. This Unitarian, oneness, all these heresies that seem to have flared up right quick. This is all part of great apostasy.
That's part of the falling away. Exactly. And what I find really sad is, have you realized all these heresies, yeah, try and badmouth Christianity's history. Everything about Christians' history is wrong and false, and just everybody's just wrong. Just they are right. These people 2,000 years later are right. Everyone else through history who's been following the scriptures is just wrong. Why?
Well, look at
Because I said-
Banjo when he jumped on bandwagon. Eddie Banjo jumps on bandwagon and starts calling us futurists and saying no one believed this futurist opinion until reformers came along. But then when you go and read early church, they were all futurists.
Tertullian.
So
Tertullian was a futurist.
out the window.
Yeah, it's insane. The apostles were all futurists. All the early church fathers were futurists. I mean, has the guy ever read the works of Polycarp before? Tertullian? It's Ignatius. It's insane. And they were all after when they claimed the Satan short season. I mean, millennial reign has happened.
You can't push Polycarp pre-70 AD.
Mm-hmm. You
And he was
can't.
martyred. So then but then here's the thing, right? When Satan's short season started, everybody was running around. Jesus returned in 70 AD, you know, trying to coming in your comments, telling you, yeah, Jesus returned in 70 AD. Look at all this knowledge that I've got. And now there's other stories coming out that, I mean, we've got this guy in a minute when we listen to him. He's got tribulation after 70 AD. That's what I wanted to look at.
Yeah, they all changed the dates.
And then now there's stories that people are claiming 400 AD.
Mhm.
You know, so like
They have to change the
at
dates
least
because
at least have a foundational belief. Otherwise, it's just random people making things up.
yeah, at least be coherent. I agree.
Below where it says Augustus, and it shows what they say when he ruled from 31 BC to 14 AD, and Diocletian, 300 years later or more, that we see the same minting of the gold coins with the same emblems on it. We see the style of the military camps. Both of these eras are when the golden age begins, according to our history books.
No. According to Heinsohn. Does he really think the history books gives a different date for the same events? Does he really believe that? I find that really, really lazy research.
For instance, a fire that destroys the Julia Basilica in the first century. There was a fire again that destroyed the Julia Basilica, but it was repaired in first century style. And this reminds me of the fire narrative that we see with old world buildings over and over and over. My lunch break does a great job with his dozens of videos showing this repeated pattern of manipulation of our timeline. But just continuing, looking at this Augustus, Caesar, and Diocletian both being contemporaneous, both ruling within the same few decades of each other. It says here, it shows the rulers dated to the early 4th century do not adopt sculptural art of the early 1st century out of a collective crazy caprice, but both groups of rulers lived at the same time. And then,
Wow. So the art's not the same, and that makes a difference. How? Just because their style of art is different, that now makes something true?
I don't
know.
get it.
Yeah.
I don't understand what he's trying to say. Like, because a lot of these Roman gadgets were horrible people, like, and they were bumped off. So why would you not expect a lot of rulers to be in short succession? It don't make any sense to me. And what does that prove, like?
He's got an issue in claiming their art looks different, but is similar at different years. So that means they are the same time period, but it's forgeries.
So like a ruler can take over and say, I want a piece of that making, but I don't want it to be like that.
Yeah, it's really idiotic. This is like literally reaching for straws, bottom of the barrel.
They all want to be better than ones who've come before them, so why would they want their art to be the same, That just doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
And it continues, it is true that the tetrarchs imitate the style of Augustus. However, they do not do this 300 years later, but only a few years later, and continues to show more and more evidence of this. This is very interesting, where he shows Diocletian's sword that he used, where they have sculptures of him. It baffles researchers that Diocletian would use a 1st century Renaissance of Hellenistic forms of this style of weaponry. Why would he use this style of weaponry?
Maybe because he likes it.
Maybe he had that style of weaponry, like. Maybe that's just what the sword actually looked like.
It doesn't take away anything about the history just because he has that style of weaponry.
But
I can show you today where people have weapons that's based on Japanese swordsmanship in the 3rd century, 4th century. So what? What has that got to do with now today? How does that mean it's false just because there's someone today that has that same style of weapon? They like it. So what? I find that really idiotic.
It's like saying that Normans and Saxons and Picts, who all invaded England, were all the same people. That's literally what he's trying to say, I think, that kind of thing.
Yeah, I don't know.
Because they were all separate people, and there's a set timeline because they didn't all attack at the same time. But I think that's what they're trying to suggest here with these Roman guys, to say that they're in this lengthy timeline.
Yeah, exactly.
300 years later.
I do hope he gets to better information, though, because this is getting boring. He's just repeating himself.
Well, I want to get to that where he were talking about tribulation, like, so that's really interesting.
Yeah.
Designs. Well, it's because he says the stratigraphic realization of the simultaneity of Augustus and Diocletian eliminates this awkward impression. And again, they were contemporaneous with each other. That's why these styles, that's why these historical battles and...
See, what he's saying now is there is time missing, 300 years missing between this. He's saying because they knew each other. That's what he's trying to say. He's saying time has been altered. They've removed 300 years of history. Yeah. Even if you remove 300 years of history for whatever reason this guy believes, it's not going to change the fact that you cannot be in Satan's short season at all. So he's claiming they actually know each other because they have the same type of art. How ridiculous. That's insane.
And architectural designs are all the same because they live within the same time frame,
Right,
and it
but-
just keeps going.
We didn't live in the same frame.
What's-
They're 300 years apart.
What's the conclusion that this guy's come to though from this information? Because he's clearly not a Satan short seasoner. So what's the conclusion he's come up with? Like, that's
don't
what I'd be
know.
interested to know.
But I mean, don't you find that very far-reaching though? Because they had the same type of art 300 years later, therefore it shows they actually lived together. So 300 years was just removed from history. No, you can look right through history. There's many times where type of cultural things and art has returned. Look today, bell bottoms are starting to becoming fashion again.
Yeah.
People are starting to get mullets again. Mustaches are starting to come to fashion again.
But like, what it like a royal sword that's handed down to the next one and to the next one, you know, that kind of thing. I didn't know that.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, like when you look at English coins at different monarchs, a lot of them do look same. They're all wearing the same crown. You know what I mean? It's like
Yeah, exactly.
just because a carving doesn't suggest that it is the same. You know.
No, but I mean, but I'm like, for instance, saying with the bell bottoms. Okay, it's coming now into fashion again. Bell bottoms have been in fashion since the 70s. Does that mean now we lived with the people in the 70s? You know what I mean? It doesn't make sense. It's incoherent. There's many things that show recyclable art throughout the centuries from people 100, 200, 300, 400 years later. They find that same artistic niche or whatever, and they adopt it into their culture. That doesn't mean that they knew each other. Doesn't mean they lived with each other and now history has been changed.
You know them marble carvings that mudflooders like to push, you know, where they look like they've got a veil over their face.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I found a modern guy who recreates them, you know. So is it what the guys who made them, all them were X amount of years ago, is there no space in between them to this guy making them now? Do you know what I mean? It's that's literally what he's saying.
This is a clutching at straws argument, just so he can try and make a claim that history's been changed. That's all he's doing. And I think it's a very weak argument, to be honest.
Going and gets into the designs again of the basilicas, going into Constantine's arch, which we talked about on the last video, which our history books say was built in the early 4th century, but they have 300 years of different emperors on the same arch. And so why is this? Were these friezes stolen from monuments from Hadrian and Trajan and Marcus Aurelius and added to Constantine's arch? Is there other, explanations of this, or
maybe, just maybe, later on they decide to build an arch, or maybe before then it was a different type of arch, but something happened, it got damaged, so they repaired it. Have you ever thought of that?
This is something that you'd have to look into. Like, how do you know that what's on this arch is what he's saying they are? Like,
that's also true.
I ain't looked into this. I ain't studied these arches and found out who's actually carved on them in the wind.
But think about it. Let's say after Tyrannus, for instance, okay, they built an arch there, but it got damaged at some time because it's a lot of years go by. But Hadrianus maybe decided not, and then when it got to Constantine, it's like, okay, let's actually repair the arch. Let's make it look contemporary to where we are right now. That doesn't mean there wasn't arches by the time of Marcus.
I mean, a lot of them arches I personally think are from Babylon,
I agree.
Just being handed down and handed down. Mm-hmm. But here's the thing, Jason Jack's presenting this information. Have you been and studied these arches and looked into it yourself? And then all you people who's watching it are going, oh, yeah, Jason Jack, that's brilliant. That proves this, that proves that. Are they doing any looking into it and finding out whether it's true? Are they just going a long way? We'll just accept it as being that's what it is. I can't believe that we're in 2026, right? all these people have all been through heliocentrism, you know, and all bullshittery that goes along with that, and we're still in a position where we've got that hive mind. You know, we'll just listen to a YouTuber and everything he says is going to be gospel.
Yep.
You know, that's like going to use university and learning about chuffing Einstein and taking everything that Einstein says is gospel.
But that's the problem with a cult, though. They want to hear anything the preacher tells them in a cult. They just accept.
Yeah, I know.
Even if it's against their better judgment, because it's what they want to hear. And that's unfortunate with the Satan's Lord seasons. They want to hear these things. So they're not going to do due diligence and do it honestly and say, okay, is what he's presenting true? No, we're just going to say it because it's for our argument. So let's just accept it. You understand?
When I used to set at Jehovah's Witnesses, I want to show you something, and they won't look at it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it would just of the devil. You know, if it disagreed with their belief, it would of the devil. You know, and
just straight away.
That's what cults are like. You know, that they accept something, but they're not looked into it. You know, how does a Jehovah's Witness, right? How do they accept that this New World Translation is the best translation of all Bibles? When you look into it, the guy who literally did the translation was took to court because he didn't know no Hebrew. And why have they not looked into that? That was the first thing I looked at when they were telling me these things. I went and looked and found that out, you know. Through looking into things is why I, as well as like what were revealed to me in Bible, is why I'm not a Jehovah's Witness.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
exactly, because you did your homework.
I'm literally not going to go and do the very same thing with these fools, you know, telling me Jesus has returned. I'm just accepting it.
Marcus Aurelius, Trajan, Hadrian, and Constantine the Great were they contemporaneous. And as his studies continue with stratigraphy, he shows, in fact, there's a lot of evidence that they were. And so, and it just keeps going and going, and then the summary at the end. So I'm going to link all of those two papers so that you can really look at
and I did look at them.
This and understand this. But with that framework now, let's begin to look at who the four horsemen are. And speaking of Caesar Augustus, who we just saw, you know, our history books say became ruler after Julius Caesar, the first true emperor or Caesar of the Roman Empire. We see that he was the Caesar at the time of Jesus' birth in Luke 2:1, and it came to pass in those days that there went out a decree from Caesar Augustus that all the world should be taxed. And going back to this,
I just want to ask something there. Didn't they have tax before Jesus was there?
Yeah.
So how does that fit in with now? Everybody has to get taxed, where they were literally getting taxed by the Romans before Jesus was even born. How does that work?
Augustus Caesar is mentioned a few times, and he's mentioned, you know, Tiberian Caesar is mentioned during the time of John the Baptist. Claudius Caesar is mentioned in Acts 11, speaking of the prophet Agabus, who prophesied that there would be a great famine during the rule of Claudius Caesar, and that it had already come to pass. And this was in Acts 11. So now we're in Acts 25, and we see Augustus' name again. According to our history books, Augustus is dead. And so...
no, really? And they couldn't know about Augustus then? Just because he died didn't mean they couldn't talk about him. What?
So when reading King James, and so let's go down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 to look at the King James Version of Acts 25:21. And it reads, "But when Paul had appealed to be reserved unto the hearing of Augustus, I commanded him to be kept till I might send him to Caesar." So this is when Paul is appealing to be sent to Rome and to be judged there. And he's appealing to Festus, and then King Agrippa listened to his appeal. And it says here, the hearing of Augustus. So this is at the very end of the book of Acts. This is, I think, probably in the early to mid 60s AD. I mean,
so you think? Okay, you think? Great. Okay.
This is probably just a few years, a year or two before Paul gets thrown into.
Hold on a minute. But when Paul appealed to be reserved for the decision of Augustus, I commanded him to be kept till he could send him to Caesar. So we've got two people there.
Yeah, so, that's two different people. That's what I was thinking too. That's because
this decision could possibly have been something implemented by Augustus, but the Caesar who is sending him to is a different.
It's a different Caesar. It's not Augustus Caesar. Exactly. Does he think there was only one Augustus in existence? It's quite interesting.
I'd have to look into this, I
want to quickly see something. It's Acts 25:21. Because we must remember, Paul was a Roman citizen, so he wasn't able to go through the same legalizations as the Jews. So he had to follow the judicial system based on the Romans.
we're not reading all verse in context. I'd have to look into this. But to me, that seems like they're not necessarily the same person. Like,
I just want to ask something though, because I'm looking. Didn't he claim that Augustus was already dead? Then he did claim that, correct?
Something to that effect, yeah.
Because that's how I heard him. I just want to quickly go back. To make sure, because I was sure he said Augustus was dead.
And he's appealing to Festus, and then King Agrippa listened to his appeal. And it says here, the hearing of Augustus. So, this is at the very end of the book of Acts. This is, I think, probably in the early to mid 60s AD. I mean, this is probably just a few years.
Whoa! Mid-60s AD.
A year or two before.
Mid-60s AD. That's exactly. It couldn't be AD. Oh no, it is 60 AD. Because if he's claiming it's mid-60s AD, Augustus would have been dead a while, because Augustus died in 14 AD. You understand? Augustus wasn't around in 60 AD.
When we're accurate, or do we not know?
That's interesting.
Paul gets thrown into a Roman prison, and I think was at the same time as when John was exiled to the Isle of Patmos, and they were both in prison.
No. John of Patmos was not exiled in 60 AD. He was exiled under Domitian in 90 to 95 AD.
You can roughly figure out when Paul were in prison by who was writing to.
Exactly.
to know where he was in prison and everything. Like, I don't. Something that, like, just reviewing this, I can't be bothered to think about. I'd have to look into it. I
This
can
is
see
a-
some fudging going off because they can't they can't have John being under Domitian, can they?
because if I'm reading why they called this, why they were saying hearing of Augustus. That's not pertaining to Caesar being Augustus. If I'm reading about it, it's giving that they use the word Augustus as a meaning, and that Augustus meaning was a title, a worship title, and it was to be revered, to be exalted, majestic. So it's not saying Paul was going to be heard by Julius, by the Caesar Augustus. You see, this is what I got an issue with these guys. They try and misrepresent what it's saying. So now he's trying to say, because it says hearing of Augustus, which means to be revered, it's giving a hearing. And now he's saying, well, that means that Caesar is Augustus Caesar. So he's trying to say that is the timeline. It also doesn't fit. You understand? Let me see. Because when Paul was arrested, okay, that was when Nero. So it was Nero Caesar who was in charge at that time.
What are we in Acts? What?
Acts 25. Because if you're looking at Acts 25:21, it's saying Festus says Paul appealed to the emperor. Okay. If we look at Acts 25:12, it says you have appealed to Caesar, and to Caesar you shall go. So that's who he's talking to, Nero. It's not Augustus. And then 27:28 says Paul is sent to Rome, the seat of Nero's authority. And what Jason Jack is trying to do here is he's taking this hearing of Augustus and trying to claim that shows Augustus was alive as Caesar when Paul was arrested. That is not true, Jason Jack. He's trying to change the history of things to make it look like history can't be trusted. Because that's what I'm reading right now. I actually want to get the Greek up on there.
Yeah, it's literally what you say. It's just a title used.
Mm-hmm.
It's not actually a person, Augustus. His name's not Augustus. It's just a title used.
That's exactly what I'm reading up on.
While Caesar was the family name, Augustus, venerable, worshipful, became a title used for all subsequent Roman emperors. So that's that.
That's the debunking of Jason Jack's argument.
Yeah.
There we go. And that's what I'm saying. So he's being dishonest. He's trying, because he reads Augustus there, he's trying to claim now, well, history's been changed because how can Paul be under Augustus?
Yeah.
Under argument. So he's trying to change the timeline.
That, well, obviously is. They've got to change timeline. They need John in Patmos, not under Domitian in year that Domitian's reigned.
Which is
Otherwise
between
it's
90
like,
and 100, yeah.
It's death to him.
Mm-hmm. But now this shows you the dishonesty they have to creep in to try and pull the wool over people's eyes, because we had to look out now about why is it saying Augustus specifically? Can you tell me that the Satan short seasonist audience listening to him is going to do the same diligence, or they're just going to accept what he says because, oh yeah, it says Augustus, therefore it's Augustus Caesar?
And leading up to these events, but then I think were released, and I think they were the two witnesses. And I made a video on that or two in the past, and we
Two witnesses? What? No.
Talked about that. But, getting back to this here, we see Augustus. We see his name. And so,
You see, we see his name. See, exactly what I'm saying. That's not Augustus Caesar. Augustus is a title given for the court. It's giving reverence to the majesty of the court, of the judicial system.
Yeah, the Caesar was Nero.
Nero, exactly. Nero Claudius.
But I told you it looked like two different people, didn't it, when it was saying Augustus and then Caesar? That's why.
That's why the language in there. That's why I wanted to go to the Greek lexicon, the Septuagint, and it does show it separate. It's giving the distinction between the two. If you're looking at Tau Sebastel, which is the Greek title for Augustus, is meaning to be revered, to be exalted. It's not a name, it's a title. It refers to the reigning emperor, Nero. So it's literally calling Nero exalted. It's calling Nero majestic. Is this intentional on his part? I don't know. I can't really say, but it does really seem that way.
Yeah.
Because it could have taken.
We'll not accuse him, but I don't know.
We don't know.
Theologians in history books will say, well, that's just a title.
Okay. He was. He just answered your question there. Yeah, yes, he knew about it. So in other words, he's just going to say theologians in history, everybody's just wrong again. Why? Because he says it's not a title. He says it is Augustus.
Augustus Caesar's well dead, but are we so sure? And what makes me even more
he's admitted that it was just a title, but it didn't add on a title passed down onto Caesars that were to come. It was a title. So you would imagine Domitian would have been called Augustus.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It was in reverence to exaltation, to majesty. Nobody was called Caesar before Julius. Okay? It was, again, a title given after Julius. Just like Augustus was a title given for reverence towards the Caesars. And he knows this. That's the sad thing about this. He knows this, and his argument is, we can't really trust this. We just have to say Augustus was alive then. So therefore, the times have been changed. So he's actually arguing and saying the Bible is lying and corrupted, if anybody hasn't realized that. He's literally saying the Bible is lying. So that's how far preterists have to go, how far Satan short season have to go. They have to change the Bible so much that they claim the Bible lies.
Curious about this is looking at the other modern Bible translations, which we continue to look at and harp on because of them coming out of corrupted texts within the little season. And you see, for instance,
see what I'm saying? Corrupted texts within the little season. Now they're trying to say the Bible's been corrupted by Satan. What did the words of the Bible say about Jesus' words, God's word? It never changes.
My word shall never pass away.
I'm sorry, this does trigger me a bit, to be honest, because the dishonesty at play it's quite alarming. So I do apologize.
But when Paul made his appeal to be held over for the emperor's decision, I ordered him held until I could send him to Caesar. The NLT below, when Paul appealed to have his case decided by the emperor, the English Standard Version, when Paul appealed to be kept in custody for the decision of the emperor. And so these new modern Bible translations are saying emperor. They're hiding Augustus.
Because emperor is also a title.
Yeah.
Augustus is the title emperor. Yeah. What the?
But King James says Augustus. And so that gets me thinking, and this is not the point of this
I
video,
wonder what it
but
says in Greek.
That's what it said. I read it in the Greek there.
Oh, yeah.
Tau Sebastian.
No, but what does it tell you it's a title in Greek?
Yes,
Oh,
Tau
right,
Sebastian.
Yeah.
Tau Sebastian is the Greek title for Augustus.
Yeah, game over then.
That's really weird. Oh man.
are they hiding that Augustus
Who's there?
still alive in the late
Who's
60s,
hiding?
leading up to?
I want to ask you something. He's claiming that Augustus was still alive in 60 AD. Okay? Let's just think about on how old he would have had to be then if he was born in 63 BC. Okay? He's claiming that Augustus would have been like 120, 130 years old at this point. Does that make sense?
What a bit point in this there, using modern translations to hide Caesar's name, but King James is still knocking about with his supposed name.
Yeah, why doesn't he change it? Why doesn't King James also change it?
Like notes being hidden, like.
No,
This is almost like Jehovah's Witness as well, when they claim name of God were hidden in Bible, but it's clearly not. It would just change to Lord in reverence of God, not
But this is
using
the
his name.
same thing, yeah, I get with the Unitarians when you bring up when they called him Lord. Okay, Lord is literally a declaration of being God.
Yeah.
And they're saying, no, it's either just a spelling fault or he's not accepting that they're calling him Lord God. It's like, it's literally telling you Lord. And if you are, the only ones that ever called Lord is Adonai, which is Yahweh.
Adonai Yahweh.
So Jesus literally is Adonai Yahweh. Jesus is Yahweh. And I get the same arguments. It's just, oh no, it's a mistranslation. You just don't understand the text. Ah, man.
70 AD, and possibly was he still alive at the
No,
time
not possibly, because he'd be about 130 years old at that time.
of the second coming of Jesus Christ and the judgments. And what's also interesting is that Augustus Caesar, he was also known as Octavian, which means the eighth. And in our calendar, August, named after Augustus, is the 8th month of the year. Is the world trying to tell us something?
What? What has that got to do with anything?
And we may need to research this more, but just speculating before we continue about the four horsemen. In Revelation 17, where it reads, 5 kings have fallen, one is, and one is not yet come. And when he
Yeah, and that hasn't happened yet, mate. Revelation 17 hasn't happened yet. The 5 kings still has to happen.
cometh, he cometh for a short time. And the beast that was and is not, even he is the 8th and of the 7 and goeth into perdition. Again, is the world trying to tell us who this 8th ruler is?
Wow.
Could it possibly be Augustus Caesar?
Going into perdition.
This is really clutching at straws. This is desperation of clutching at straws. I mean, this is putting aside everything and just saying, nah, they're lying. Everything is a lie, guys. Just trust me, because I want to be insane and I want to say the guy's probably 130 years old and the 5 kings are there. Look at the ridiculousness of this. If he's claiming Revelation 17, Jesus is like there. Okay, the 3rd temple has been built. Tribulation. The mark of the beast. Where is the Antichrist? Obviously, he's going to claim Nero as the Antichrist now, correct? And Nero doesn't fit the description of the Antichrist because Nero ever went to Jerusalem. He was never even able to sit in the temple and declare himself as God.
Is Son of Perdition not described as being Assyrian?
Yes. Nero wasn't Assyrian.
Can't be Roman at all. Like, so.
This is also one thing why I keep telling the people that thinking like Trump is the Antichrist or the Pope. It doesn't fit the description of the Antichrist.
Come from Middle East. Got to.
No, exactly.
Because we see that name in the book of Acts. Well, towards the end of it. So again,
no name, man.
Let's get back to this study though, and we see this slide showing. Let me put. If I can get that up there, we see Nero, Domitian, Diocletian, and we see all of these together. And this slide is saying, well, Smyrna and the near extinction of Christianity was carried out by these rulers. And these rulers all...
Oh, my word. Christianity was growing under these, how can I say, persecutions by these leaders. They weren't dying out. There wasn't near extinction. What is this guy talking about? The Christianity was growing through this persecution. This was the same time as when, for instance, with Nero, with Paul was there. Notice that John was still alive during Domitian's time. Then came the early church fathers, Polycarp, and you had then Ignatius, and then you had and it went on. But this guy is literally making stuff up. This is triggering because this guy's literally lying about history. He's lying about the Christian faith. He's just literally outright lying. There is just no other words about it. And this also doesn't fit Satan's short season because this is the time you guys claimed was millennial reign. How do you have millennial reign if you're claiming Christians are being extinct?
We're not on the same page on when this millennial reign were. You know what I mean? Now that I'm hearing them saying that like short season started in the 1700s or something, which I don't know how they book all these dates. I really don't.
Yeah, sorry guys, this is so confusing because every one of them have a different date. Every single one of them changed the dates. And their fallback is, because we can't really trust history. And then it's like, okay, but why do you say this? Oh, because let me go back to history and tell you.
All had similarities in their persecution of Christians, with Diocletian being the greatest of them all. And this slide says 10 major persecutions. This is according to our history books against Christians by the Roman Empire occurred over almost a 300-year period from the time of Nero to Diocletian. And so if we understand that these emperors were not spaced out by 250, 300 years, but they were contemporaneous with each other.
No. See, again, trying to say they were literally like in succession. He's like literally claiming they like knew each other practically. Really?
Then these 10 major persecutions over 300 years, I believe, were carried out possibly by the 10 kings and a one unified Christian persecution, the Great Tribulation that we read about in the Bible. Oh,
my word. Oh, my word. This is like getting beyond ridiculous.
This
Sorry,
is
I'm
really-
laughing so much.
This is where it all starts getting messed up, though. Like, are these guys? Say they're not 300 years apart, but are they after 70 AD? Because if they're after 70 AD, you ain't got no tribulation because there's no temple.
Yeah, exactly. It's exactly that.
This is whatever you're gonna get with all this twisting around and that. It has to fit the Bible and what the Bible says, and it doesn't.
This guy's. How does anybody watch his things and thinks, yeah, this guy's like piecing so much puzzles together. This guy is like speaking the truth. I mean, this is how ridiculous it was. Like, I was listening to that thing yesterday with JT follows JC claiming Moses didn't write Exodus.
Yeah, I'm gonna make a video on that.
I'm like, the arguments they came up with is as much idiotic.
Does it literally claim that? Like, I haven't watched video. Like,
Yeah. Him and the guy, his guest, is literally claiming things like, well, how did they know about this if Moses wrote out? Because it's talking in the future. Hello, Moses spoke to God face to face. How old is that to understand?
It easily debunked that claim. Like,
That's
I'm gonna
another
make a video on that one.
Oh, yeah. But I mean, you see how desperate these Satan short seasonists are. He had another stream the other day. I didn't even watch it yet. He says Tartaria has been found. Yeah. I didn't even watch it.
See, like, regarding Tartaria, I'm not saying that it didn't exist as like a place was named that at one point in time, but a lot of rubbish that comes along with it.
Oh, yeah.
Free energy and all that business.
Mm-hmm.
No, I'm sorry.
I agree.
Prior to the second coming of Jesus Christ, and all of these evil Caesars and emperors were all involved at the same time.
Same time.
So let's go.
Wait, again, can't be same time. They lived in different generations. Okay?
But were it like a
When one died, a
pantheon,
new one came to be.
a pantheon of ruling Caesars?
It's like, hey, Julius, hey, Nero, how's it going, man? They didn't live at the same time.
Were it a democracy?
Exactly. Oh, man, this is insane.
Back to Diocletian now. Now that we understand, we see all the similarities with his rulership and Augustus Caesar's rulership. We see that.
Yeah. You know why Diocletian was paranoid? Because there was a prophecy about the Christian nation coming and overthrowing Rome. That's why he was paranoid. That's why Julius Caesar was paranoid, because it was a prophecy about the Messiah coming and overthrowing. Catch the drift?
There is a very high likelihood that he is not a 4th century emperor or Caesar, but a 1st century emperor, contemporaneous with the others that we see. And speaking of Diocletian,
okay, I want to ask you something. This might just sound dumb, but if he's claiming he's a 1st century emperor, which we know is not true because there was already a 1st century emperor, and Christianity didn't have any buildings yet, did they? How did they destroy church buildings?
Interesting.
Yeah, that's a bit weird.
again, this is
synagogues or something like that. I don't know.
Yeah, they were still having in synagogues. Remember, they were still Jewish. They were just Messianic Jews there at that time. Okay, they still followed under Jewish tradition, but they were now Messianic Jewish Christians. So they were Christians, but there were no what these guys are trying to think of, like when you look at the Roman Catholic Church and things today. There were no cathedrals and buildings as such yet, because they were still under heavy persecution. They were still being driven out and trying to be squashed as not having these things. That's why when Paul was writing to the church in Smyrna, writing to the church in Philadelphia and all that, it wasn't specifically like a huge cathedral, if anybody is wondering.
Just people, weren't it?
Reviewing what we talked about briefly on the last video
Just
about the
quickly.
early church fathers.
Yeah.
But
I think synagogue in Greek just literally means a gathering or something.
It is exactly that. Because if I look it up, the earliest church, okay, which was not actually a church building, was only around the 1st to 2nd century. It wasn't really a building. The first known church building was dated to around 240 AD. So that's way after when Paul was writing, when Paul was alive. And Paul was already writing to the churches of Philadelphia, to Smyrna, to the church. That's what the thing. That churches that was ecclesia. It was a gathering of people. They gathered in the synagogues. They gathered in places. Just like when Jesus was preaching to people in the wilderness, when he was going to, for instance, next to the Sea of Galilee, preaching in the multitudes came. That was church.
Yeah. Gathering in each other's homes and stuff like that.
Yeah, so when this guy's writing a destroyed church buildings, and he's claiming it was it as first century, that's insane, because Lucian could destroy church buildings in the 3rd century when he still actually lived, because that's when church buildings were there.
I've had this put to me. Why can't we find the church of Smyrna or such? You know, it literally was a building.
Yeah, they weren't buildings, exactly. But I mean, even if you look at, like, for instance, that old in Syria, that first church that they claim, okay, that's around 8230 to 8240. At Europe, you can't find it. You can't find it because it's so long ago. It's literally been destroyed and built upon, and destroyed and built upon. That's how churches have been shown through history. Many church buildings. I see him. Okay, let's carry on. But you understand what I'm saying? It's this guy's being very disingenuous, because now he's making a claim that Diocletian was 1st century, but at the same time claiming he's destroying church buildings which didn't exist in the 1st century. You can't have it. You can only have it one way or the other.
Looking at it from a Caesar standpoint, he was a paranoid emperor, the most savage of persecutions. He destroyed church buildings, Bibles, destroyed writings. He probably changed some writings, removed legal rights of Christians, mutilated, murdered Christians, imprisoned the clergy. And it says that he is perhaps best remembered for the Diocletianic persecution, the empire's largest and bloodiest official persecution of Christianity. So he led the greatest persecution of Christianity of the Roman Empire.
Yeah. Not in the 1st century. Not in the 1st century. I think that's a big disservice to all the people who were martyred for Jesus. I find that a big disservice to claiming that everybody who died for Jesus' name in the 3rd century is all just a lie. I don't know about you, but that personally, to me, I think is just a low blow from the so-called Christian.
Well, the fact that if it is burning church buildings, they possibly were in 4th century, like. So if he's burning church buildings, that proves that it's not 1st century. It's got to be 4th century.
That's my point. I don't understand how this guy doesn't realize what he's saying. It's just total nonsense.
And more blood was shed in his time than any other previous persecution. So now we understand that he is a first century Caesar.
He's not.
And this makes complete sense.
Let's
No,
have a look at them
no.
saints. St. Agnes of Rome.
What about St. Agnes of Rome?
There were a list of saints that he persecuted.
Yes.
St. Agnes,
Which is 3rd century.
3rd century, yeah.
Oh my word.
For Diocletian and the great persecution was the time of the great tribulation.
No.
When Jesus spoke about the great tribulation and the
Yeah, when Jesus spoke about the Great Tribulation, there's things that have to happen for the Great Tribulation to happen. And what he just said didn't follow of the Great Tribulation at all. And I can already see he's going to misrepresent Matthew 24 now. Because he's got it on screen now, and he's going to say, oh, because they were persecuted, the Christians, therefore it's the Great Tribulation. No.
You see persecution all the way through Bible, though, like, you know. It's just called tribulation. This is described as the Great Tribulation,
Exactly.
as never been before and never will be again.
Exactly. I mean, think about it today. Every day, there's thousands of Christians being killed today, okay? Persecuted and killed. Way more than the time of Diocletian.
Yep.
Okay? Does that make sense? If that was the Great Tribulation, why are there more Christians being slaughtered today than there were those times?
Yeah, it don't make sense. This is how we
All
know
the
that it's bunkum, though, isn't it? Like, because you observe what's really going on in reality.
Mm-hmm.
course, in Matthew 24:21-22, he was speaking of this time. For then shall be great tribulation, such as was.
If you can't see with your eyes what's going off is leading up to Antichrist, and I don't know what to say, you know.
Exactly. I don't know how anybody can...
Everything that's going off in Middle East and that, you know.
I mean, all the prophecies that are coming to fruition right now, it's literally end time prophecies before the temple gets built, before the Antichrist comes, before the Great Tribulation comes, before Jesus returns. How does one sit back and just ignore all that and say, no, it's all happened already? I can't show you how, but it's happened already. How? How do you sit back and think that's an honest way of looking at life? Doesn't make sense to me.
Not since the beginning of the world to this time, no, nor ever shall be. And except those days should be shortened, there should no flesh be saved. But for the elect's sakes, those days shall be shortened. So I believe that Jesus was prophesying of this future great tribulation, and that Diocletian was a part of this. And we see here, according to our history books, Diocletian was the first tetrarch, which means that he was part of a divided empire where different parts of the empire were given rulership to different people within it. And he presided over this first tetrarch. But we know from the Bible that that's not true.
What? Oh man, I don't know what more further to say about this guy other than, please guys, don't trust anything this guy puts out. Don't even try think that anything this guy presents to you is anything but just nonsense.
In Luke 3:1, we see a tetrarch. In the times of Tiberius Caesar, this was the time of John the Baptist. Now, in the 15th year of the reign of Tiberius Caesar, Pontius Pilate being governor of Judea, and Herod being tetrarch of Galilee, and his brother Philip, tetrarch of Iturea, and of the region of Trachonitis, and Lysanias, the tetrarch of Abilene. So we see a tetrarch right here.
Hold on, we see a tetrarch of tetrarchs. What on earth is he on about?
In the first century in the Bible. And so I think this tetrarch that Diocletian formed was simply a continuation of the tetrarchs that were previous to him in first century AD.
Okay, now how does that show that the Bible lied? Did the Bible say anything about Diocletian? No.
It's also that verse where it just showed this, showing that like this tetrarch thing is not just Roman.
Yeah. Was Herod a Roman? No.
And his brother were a tetrarch.
Yeah.
Just skip it back. Let's look. There's three tetrarchs here in that verse.
There we go.
We've got Tiberius Caesar. We've got Herod, and we've got brother Philip, and we've also got, in fact, there's one,
Ignatius and Abilene.
2, 3. There's 4.
4
tetrarchs.
But he's saying the Bible's lying, all because Domitius was given a title of the tetrarch. That doesn't mean that the Bible's lying because the Bible's showing the tetrarchs. It just shows that he was given the title of the tetrarch. Get it? How is the Bible lying? Domitian came way after the Bible was written. Okay? Obviously, the Council of Nicaea came after that and compiled the canon. But the scriptures were already written before then. Way before then. The scriptures stopped being written after Revelation. And Michael said actually a very profound thing to me. You want to maybe tell them before what do you think
it was profound?
I think so. I never thought of it that way.
Yeah, it just occurred to me, like I'd never thought of it this way. Like, but why was John given the final revelation? Because he was the only one left at disciples. There were no other disciple to give that revelation to. They'd all been killed.
Yeah. And then he ended the scriptures. It ended. Exactly. So I guess we're going to stop the recording here today.
But just let me just add, like, what we've got with Satan's short season is another revelation. Just like a Mormon revelation, add a new revelation. Just like Islam's a new revelation. You know, don't believe it. We're not in Satan's short season. Jesus not returned. I don't know why people are falling for it. I can only assume that the majority of people that follow this channel and believe it aren't really Christians or are considering being believers, but they're really not. I don't know. Like, anybody who spent any time in the scriptures should better refute it.
I agree. I mean, if you just know basic history, it debunks him. I mean, the things he said now were so ridiculous. I really don't see how anybody can think. Anything that he brings up is literally just bunk. How do you sit back and think, wow, this guy's so clever. He's got so knowledgeable on the subject. He's bringing so much truth when literally everything he says is just plain out a lie and wrong.
How do you reconcile in your mind, though, that we're living in this time that Satan's released, deceiving everybody?
But the deception's coming from these people.
And then accept truth's coming from them and there's no deception. Do you know what I mean? I don't know how you can reconcile that in your head either. Like, I don't know how you're supposed to come to any kind of truth.
That's the irony of this. the so-called people claiming that deception is coming from Satan are the ones pushing the deception. But yeah, it was a good recording. Thank you, Michael. Appreciate it.
Oh, it is.
Until next week again.
It was fun. Popped my new computer cherry.
Yeah. Well, you are now Mr. Cyborg. How's the ticker going?
It's all right. It still hurts a bit.
Sure, man.
But
But it's a quick procedure, though.
yeah, we're only minor surgery, like just a little cut, and then it was like I don't know, like some kind of device that shoots it in underneath your skin.
Yeah.
But it smartened after, like once anaesthetic went off, I felt like I'd been shot.
I was thinking that first night you're probably going to have a very uncomfortable night.
I've not slept properly since, to be fair. Well,
Yeah, it's going to take a while.
Yeah.
But it was a good discussion, man. Appreciate you.
No worries.
Guys, please hit the likes, share the show, and share this with every single Satan short seasonist you know, or even don't know, just even if you think they're one, because they need to see the truth. They need to see what's being pushed out to everyone, because it isn't.
You can't just blindly accept what they're telling you, you know. You've got to, I mean, to me, just a bit of common sense, you know. But ultimately, there's only one thing in this world that you know's the truth, and that's Bible.
Amen.
You know, so you have to like test everything through Bible, and for me, Satan's short season just don't fit in Bible
At all.
So
I agree.
that's
But
why I'm
thanks,
against it.
Agreed, 100%. But thank you again, Michael. Thank you, everybody. God bless. Till next time.
Bye.